The $667 million institutional secret that could make early investors wealthy. What if I told you that while everyone's been obsessing over the latest meme coin pumps and AI token narratives, a quiet financial revolution has been building that could dwarf every other crypto story of 2025? I'm talking about a blockchain that just crossed 100 million transactions, exploded its total value locked by 120% in a single quarter, and somehow convinced institutions managing trillions to start building their future on its rails. Here's the shocking part. Most retail investors still haven't heard of it. I'm talking about Stellar XLM. And after diving deep into mountains of institutional data, partnership announcements, and regulatory filings, I can tell you this. We're witnessing the most undervalued infrastructure play in all of crypto. And the numbers I'm about to show you will absolutely blow your mind. Smash that subscribe button right now, because what I discovered isn't just another crypto speculation play. This is institutional capital deployment happening at a scale that makes traditional Wall Street take notice. By the end of this video, you'll understand why some of the smartest money in finance is quietly positioning for what industry insiders are calling the wealth transfer event of the decade. The moment everything changed for Stellar. Let me paint you a picture of what's really happening behind the scenes. While retail investors were chasing the latest Solana meme coin or debating which layer 2 would flip Ethereum, Stellar was quietly orchestrating something far more valuable, the systematic integration of traditional finance into blockchain infrastructure. Here's a story that perfectly captures this transformation. Earlier this year, Franklin Templeton and Imparters, a company managing over $1.5 trillion in assets, it didn't just announce a pilot program or a proof of concept. They moved $500 million of their US government money fund directly onto Stellar's network. $500 million. That's not experiment money, folks. That's production-grade institutional confidence money. But here's where it gets wild. This wasn't an isolated event. Circle integrated USDC natively on Stellar, processing over $4.2 billion in cumulative transaction volume. Societe Generale Forge, one of Europe's oldest banks, launched their MiCA-compliant EURCV stablecoin on Stellar. Visa announced they're integrating Stellar alongside Ethereum, Solana, and Avalanche for stablecoin settlement. When Visa chooses your network for merchant settlements, that's not adoption, that's validation at the highest possible level. The numbers that will shock you. Now, let me show you the data that made me realize we're looking at something unprecedented. Stellar's total value locked exploded from $69 million in Q2 2025 to $152.11 million by mid-August. That's a 120% quarter-over-quarter increase and an 80% month-over-month jump. But here's what makes this different from every other TVL pump we've seen. This isn't retail money chasing unsustainable yields. Over 58% of borrowed assets are denominated in tokenized treasuries and fiat-backed stablecoins. This is institutional capital testing, compliance-ready financial primitives. The network processed 100 million smart contract transactions by August 2025. Let me put that in perspective. These aren't casino transactions or NFT flips. We're talking about programmable escrow agreements for trade, finance, algorithmic liquidity provision in decentralized exchanges, automated royalty distributions for tokenized digital assets, payroll streaming solutions, and cross-border micropayments. Active wallet addresses approached 9.69 million by late August 2025, with 5,000 to 6,000 new wallets created daily. But here's the kicker. This growth isn't coming from speculative trading. It's enterprise onboarding of payroll processors, remittance providers, and NGO disbursement platforms. Monthly operation volumes exceeded 197 million operations in June 2025 alone. That's an order of magnitude increase over previous annual rates, demonstrating the network's ability to handle both high-frequency retail usage and large institutional transactions without any degradation in performance or security. The stablecoin empire nobody saw coming. Here's where the story gets absolutely insane. While everyone was focused on the latest DeFi protocol promising impossible returns, Stellar built a multi-currency stablecoin ecosystem that spans 7 different fiat currencies and reached $667 million in total market capitalization. Circle's USDC on Stellar has processed over $4.2 billion in cumulative transaction volume with monthly reserve attestations ensuring complete transparency. GMO trusts ZUSD and GYN are revolutionizing Asian remittances under Japan's Financial Instruments and Exchange Act. But the European expansion is what really caught my attention. Societe Generale Forge launched EURCV in February 2025, fully compliant with MiCA regulations. When one of Europe's oldest banks issues a stablecoin on your network, that's institutional validation at the highest level. Circle expanded with EURC. Tempo France introduced EURT under Europe's Payment Services Directive, and Bitbon launched EURB, a regulated euro token issued directly by a European bank. The emerging market story is equally compelling. Nigeria's NGNT is facilitating over 10 billion naira in monthly remittances, cutting traditional corridor costs by 70%. South Africa's ZARC moved 50 million rand in its first month while offering 7.5% APY to holders. These aren't theoretical use cases, this is financial inclusion happening in real time. Cowrie Exchange's NGNT corridor offers 70% lower cost than legacy remittance providers. ZARC's introduction reduced sub-Saharan Africa cross-border transfer fees by up to 80%. When you can cut remittance costs from 8% to 0.01% and reduce settlement time from 3 days to 5 seconds, you're not competing with crypto. You're obsoleting traditional finance. But here's where it gets wild. This wasn't an isolated event. Circle integrated USDC natively on Stellar, processing over $4.2 billion in cumulative transaction volume. Societe Generale Forge, one of Europe's oldest banks, launched their MiCA-compliant EURCV stablecoin on Stellar. Visa announced they're integrating Stellar alongside Ethereum, Solana, and Avalanche for stablecoin settlement. When Visa chooses your network for merchant settlements, that's not adoption. That's validation at the highest possible level. And you guys, I have a special trick for you which nobody seems to be using, and I cannot wrap my head around why. Because if you sign up through my link down in the description onto the BuyDefi exchange, you get a 10% deposit bonus, and now stay with me here. Now, here comes the important part. If you have any trading capital on any other exchange, and you move it to your newly created BuyDefi account, you get on top of your capital. You moved another 10% extra trading capital. As an example, if you move or deposit $10,000 to your account, you get a $1,000 for free. And here is why this is possible. BuyDefi makes money on trading fees. The more capital you have, the more you trade. The more you trade, the more they earn. So they're literally investing in your trading activity by giving you extra capital up front. And unlike other platforms where bonuses are in the 1 to 3% range, BuyDefi's bonus is a full 10%. I am not kidding. I really don't understand why nobody is doing this. To me, it really seems like people sometimes are too lazy or just don't like free money. I kindly ask you to pause this video and take your time to make an account. You can thank me later in the description of this video. Alright, let's jump back into the video. The institutional breakthrough moment. Now here's where this story takes a dramatic turn. In July 2025, Stellar officially joined the Tokenized Assets Coalition alongside institutional heavyweights including Fidelity Investments, BlackRock, S&P Dow Jones Indices, and regulatory-grade blockchains like Polymesh and Cody. This coalition has one mission: onboarding the next $1 trillion of assets on-chain. Stellar's inclusion wasn't ceremonial. They're contributing to working groups on compliance standards, interoperability protocols, and settlement models. The coalition's early 2024 report estimated the tokenized asset market at $176 billion, with private credit accounting for over $9 billion of TVL and metals issuance approaching $1 billion. But here's the mind-blowing projection. McKinsey and major banks forecast the tokenized asset market cap surging to $2 trillion to $30 trillion by 2033. That's trillion with a T. And Stellar has positioned itself as core infrastructure for this migration. Stellar also embraced ERC 3643, the compliance framework that already oversees $32 billion worth of tokenized assets in production. This standard provides permissioned access controls, jurisdictional alignment, and transparent auditability, everything institutions need to sleep soundly at night. The Stellar Development Foundation publicly articulated a $3 billion target for tokenized assets on their network by year-end 2025, up from just $290 million in December 2024. partnerships with Archax for money market fund tokenization, Societe Generale Forge for European bond tokens, and IBM's WorldWire for emerging market ESG assets show they're not just talking about growth, they're systematically building the infrastructure to achieve it. The regulatory revolution that changes everything. Here's something most crypto YouTubers won't tell you because it's not sexy. Regulatory clarity is the ultimate competitive moat in institutional finance. The United States Genius Act, signed into law in July 2025, established the first federal framework for payment stablecoins. Europe's MiCA regulation became effective in June 2025, providing legal certainty for Euro stablecoins. Instead of being regulatory headwinds, these are massive tailwinds for compliant networks like Stellar. When regulators provide clear rules, institutional capital floods in. We saw this with Bitcoin ETFs, and we're seeing it now with compliant tokenization platforms. Singapore's Capital Market Services Act amendments formalized the legal standing of tokenized funds. Hong Kong's new electronic securities ordinance provided a safe harbor for on-chain equity. Dubai's DIFC regulatory sandbox granted license exemptions for tokenized real estate offerings. Multiple central banks tested CBDC interoperability with Soroban contracts. The Marshall Islands CBDC launched on Stellar achieved peak daily transaction volumes of 35,000 and daily active users exceeding 12,000. When sovereign nations use your network for monetary policy implementation, you're no longer operating on crypto's periphery. You're part of the global financial infrastructure. The network effects explosion. Let me share something that really opened my eyes about Stellar's tokenomics. Every stablecoin transaction requires XLM for network fees. Every cross-chain bridge operation consumes XLM for settlement. Every Soroban smart contract execution burns XLM for computational resources. As institutional adoption compounds, XLM demand scales proportionally. The network's fee burn mechanism creates deflationary pressure as transaction volume increases. We're talking about a system where increased usage directly reduces token supply while driving utility demand. Telegram's integration of XLM into their in-app wallet exposed 100 million monthly active users to Stellar's ecosystem. Visa integrated Stellar for stablecoin settlement. PayPal announced PYUSD integration pending regulatory approvals. These aren't crypto partnerships. These are enterprise integrations at global scale. By mid-2025, institutional addresses account for over 60% of daily transaction volume on Stellar. That's a complete reversal from 2022, when retail comprised the majority. This shift demonstrates the maturation of Stellar's ecosystem toward professional financial use. The Soroban smart contract revolution. Stellar's introduction of Soroban in early 2024 marked a watershed moment in the network's evolution. Soroban's design, rooted in WebAssembly and Rust, delivered high throughput, predictable fees, and deep integration with Stellar's existing payment rails. The Stellar Development Foundation catalyzed growth through a dedicated $100 million Soroban adoption fund, allocating over $15 million in early stages to more than 160 projects spanning lending, insurance, auditing, and token bridges. This strategic investment lowered barriers for developers and anchored Soroban's ecosystem growth. By August 2025, Soroban SDK downloads exceeded 75000 and the total number of live dApps surpassed 340. Hackathons attracted over 1,800 participants, spawning innovations in on-chain insurance protocols, decentralized identity oracles, and composable real-world asset marketplaces. Here's what makes this remarkable. While the broader DeFi space saw $712 million in exploits during H1 2025, with cross-chain bridges accounting for 38% of losses, Soroban contracts experienced zero high-severity incidents. This security record, attributed to mandatory pre-deployment audits, formal verification, and modular permission settings, is exactly what institutions need to see. The Meridian 2025 catalyst moment. Here's why timing matters more than most people realize. Meridian 2025, happening the 17th of September and 18th, represents a pivotal inflection point. Historically, Meridian has been where Stellar announces major partnerships, but this year feels fundamentally different. The entire context around institutional adoption, regulatory clarity, and tokenization has aligned perfectly with Stellar's strengths. Expect announcements from global banks, payment processors, and asset managers ready to deploy billions in daily settlement volume. Industry observers anticipate landmark announcements cementing Stellar's institutional trajectory. Speculation centers on global banks unveiling tokenized bond issuances, asset managers launching tokenized funds with on-chain compliance controls, and major payment processors integrating stablecoins for cross-border merchant settlement. The conference will showcase live implementations of institutional-grade DeFi, real-world asset tokenization platforms, and compliance modules that embed regulatory requirements directly into smart contracts. This isn't crypto theater. This is institutional finance evolution happening in real time. The investment thesis that smart money sees? Let me break down why sophisticated investors are paying attention. Stellar's metrics indicate we're approaching an institutional adoption inflection point that retail markets haven't fully recognized yet. The 100 million transaction milestone isn't just an adoption metric, it's validation from institutional players, evaluating networks for billions in daily financial flows. Stellar's combination of regulatory alignment, performance efficiency, and established partnerships provides compelling risk-adjusted returns. Unlike networks dependent on retail speculation, Stellar's utility-driven demand model creates sustained value creation. Every transaction, every stablecoin bridge, every tokenized asset settlement reinforces the network's essential role in global financial infrastructure. Cross-border payments currently cost 7% of transaction value and take days to settle. Stablecoins reduce both to near zero and real-time clearance. The IMF forecasts that up to 20% of global foreign exchange settlement could migrate to compliant public blockchains by 2032, generating 20 to 30 billion in annual cost savings. XLM's unique positioning as infrastructure for regulated tokenization provides downside protection while maintaining upside exposure to the tokenization growth wave. As tokenized assets scale toward the multi-trillion-dollar threshold predicted by McKinsey and BCG, networks lacking Stellar's compliance features and institutional partnerships will struggle to attract institutional flows. The quiet revolution happening right now. What we're witnessing isn't another crypto hype cycle. It's the systematic integration of blockchain technology into global financial infrastructure, with Stellar positioned as primary settlement rails. The $667 million stablecoin ecosystem, 100 million transaction milestone, institutional partnerships with Franklin, Templeton, and Visa, regulatory alignment through ERC 3643, and the Tokenized Assets Coalition. These collectively signal that Stellar has transcended experimental status. This is production-grade infrastructure handling real institutional flows. The wealth transfer event of the decade isn't happening in some distant future. It's happening right now. Transaction by transaction, partnership by partnership, regulation by regulation. While retail markets chase narratives, smart money follows utility. XLM's utility is compounding daily as traditional finance migrates to blockchain rails. The revolution won't be televised, but it will be tokenized, and Stellar is building the infrastructure that will carry it forward. Smash that like button if this deep dive opened your eyes to what's really happening behind the scenes. Subscribe, because we're tracking every major development in this space. The quiet revolution is happening right now, and those who recognize it early will be positioned to profit from the next wave of institutional blockchain adoption.